This review of The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching and enjoying this review. One thing that I love in video games is when current events seem to match up to them. Talk about the timing, huh? Without going too much into detail, let's just say that there's some similarities between what's going on in this game and some other related countries that had some things going on in them. But I digress. I'm not here to talk about my opinions, I'm here to talk to you about this game, which is why it's so good, why this game is so great. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is an RPG that I hold very dear to my heart because it took such a long time for it to finally logarithmically peak and no longer keep getting better. Why do you ask that? Well, there's tons and tons of things that makes Morrowind such a great game. There's tons of reasons to love it, tons of reasons to appreciate it, and tons of reasons why you should play it. So, let's jump into Morrowind's island of Vardenfall and explain why you need to play this immediately with the story. Morrowind's plot starts out pretty simple. At first, you're given directions to go see a blade spy master named Caius Casades. Then, things start to get more complex. Turns out a long time ago there was a guy named Indoril Nerevar who was a really great leader.
I'd be happy.
And then his followers really fucked up. So basically Azura, a good demon if you will, came up to them and said, "Hey, guess what? You know that Nerevar guy? Oh yeah, he's coming back and he's gonna fix this shit. Alright?" So after another one of your followers comes back, well, he starts teasing you. You know why? Because you are Nerevar. You are the Nerevarine, at least the reincarnation. Well, kind of. There's a lot of ambiguity with it that lets you guess who you really are. But that's only scratching the surface. Morrowind has a lot of very interesting plot elements to it, like historical revisionism and censorship. You get to see a lot of topics about the Nerevarine being censored, and you get to see some truths that you thought were truths turned out to be lies that were spread around the entire land. It's all presented really well in this game, like how a tribe of people called the Ashlanders live in these secluded areas because society has rejected them because they talked about the Nerevarine. You also have to save a main character that's being held in a prison because she was talking about the Nerevarine. You get to see this censorship going on as you progress in the story. There's also some lightly sprinkled topics about trade, corruption, and slavery, but they're all pretty interesting. There's nothing that I can honestly say feels forced or bad about Morrowind when it comes to its storytelling, and I think that's a good thing. All these topics that are brought up makes Morrowind feel like it's a very alien place. Not just in its presentation, but just in its storytelling. This is a very different place than what we're used to, and that makes it all the more interesting. But really, we can't talk about how alien this game is without going a little bit more into detail about the game itself, right? Morrowind is a Western RPG that doubles as a dungeon crawler of sorts. You control one character, create or choose a class, choose a birth sign, and choose a race and explore the entire world around you. Every class has 5 major skills and 5 minor skills. Major skills give you a significant boost, while minors give you a minor one, but either way, they'll still give you something. And everything else is determined by your racial boosts. Morrowind, much like the rest of the Elder Scrolls games, does not use a traditional XP system like many other RPGs. Instead, you level up your skills themselves, and on every level up, you can increase your stats relative to the skill that a stat represented. So while it is a unique system, unique doesn't always mean good, and it comes at the cost of grinding to level up as opposed to just completing quests or defeating enemies. However, there are ways to make doing this a lot easier that I'll get into later. Birth signs and races only serve as additives to your classes, giving you control on what your beginning stats are, your skill bonuses, and your hidden powers. For example, a Breton race has a constant 50% resistance to magic attacks, while Khajiits get bonuses and tons of stealth-related skills. However, Argonians and Khajiits are different from all the other races. Because they have snouts and animal-like feet, they can't wear boots, and full helms are completely out of their reach. Birth signs can go from many things, from either stat increasements to new powers, like the Shadow, which gives you the ability to be invisible for 60 seconds every day, or the Warrior, which increases your attack by 10. Simple, but it works. Combining, mixing, and experimenting is what gives Morrowind its luster, and I can't blame someone for wanting to restart when they found a way to play that's beneficial to them. There are 3 schools of skill sets, and mixing them is how you maximize a character out. There's combat, which features weapons, stealth, which features thief stuff, and magic, which features magic. For me, I found that I loved the magic aspect of this game, along with select elements from other fields that I loved, like hand-to-hand and light armor. Like I said earlier, there's no shame in starting a new game after you figure out exactly what you want to play as. My first character named Ass Faggots, yes, you have to shout it, he told me a lot of things about combat and stealth that I didn't really like, so I tried out some magic and I said, hey, I really like this. So then I made a Khajiit that could do a lot of magic related things along with some things that I liked, like hand-to-hand. Oh boy, magic. Woo! Let me tell you about how broken magic is. I was jumping and moving around at 2,500 units of speed, flying all the way from the other side of the map. Hell, I could jump all the way from Vardenfall to Solstheim, and it was awesome! But that's my point, is that magic in this game is so fucking crazy broken. It's so easy for your character to continuously make money with it. It's so easy for your character to get anything with it. It's just easy mode. Because of this ill-maintained balance, magic becomes the dominant strategy in Morrowind. Oh, this thing's too expensive. Whoops, just fortified my merchant and fucking speech by 100 for a second. Hey, time freezes when you talk to people. Oh, look at that. Now it's like 1,000,000,000% cheaper. Woo! Hell yeah, I'm good at this game. My point is that while I love the magic field, it's just so easy to abuse everything in it. Oh, mysticism has absorb health. I'll just use that. Oh, I can absorb fatigue. Okay. I can mark and recall to make travel quicker. Okay. There's so many ways to use mysticism. Then there's restoration where you can fortify everything. There's so many ways to abuse this, and alchemy is by far the worst. But the thing is, that's still fun when you abuse it. This game is still good, even when you abuse stuff like that. That means going in as a predominant warrior or predominant thief, this game kind of becomes a little slow-paced. But that doesn't mean that it's bad, it's just a different experience, but everything becomes slower, and you have to take a lot more time to do stuff. Or you could just fucking run around at the speed of sound. And yes, there are things that are immune to fucking magic, and there are things that are immune to combat and stuff. And there's also hand-to-hand where you can fucking punch ghosts. It's the best. I fucking love hand-to-hand. You fucking make a ghost have fatigue. How the fuck? There is another thing that magic counteracts, and it's the elephant in the room when you always discuss Morrowind. It's combat. Here's the thing. Morrowind's combat isn't even close to traditional. You stand there, you see the sword hit and collide with the thing you're hitting, but you hear a miss sound. And that's what it is. It's basically roll the dice combat. Now you're saying, well, that kind of fucking blows real bad, my dude. And yes, it does blow pretty bad. And there are ways to fix it. For starters, making your main choices of weapons a major skill so you have a very high chance to hit. Or at least higher. Which is good. But you can also just fortify the skill with magic. My point is that there's ways to make this combat a lot more enjoyable, so if you honestly can't get the ropes for this game, well, there's no way to sugarcoat it, you're kind of dumb. The thing is, everything in this game is like that. Spells have a chance to be cast, weapons have a chance to hit, potions have a chance to fail, enchantments can fail, speech can fail, you can fail getting merchants. The RNG in this game can really drive me up the fucking walls. But thankfully, there are a few ways to fix this. The first is just fortifying it. Did you know that magic's broken? I don't think you guys know that yet. But also, there are trainers in this game. You can find trainers basically anywhere, and you can just give them your gold, they'll raise you up a level, and then it's easier. It's easier to do stuff, it's easier to level up. However, of course, it costs money, so you just kind of walk up and fortify your merchant by 100 and just kind of get the thing for like 70 gold. And, God damn, magic is broken! Okay, but look, magic's broken, the combat can be ass, then what's so even good about this game? Is there anything that's even good in Morrowind? Well, yeah. Firstly, I didn't get to some of it yet, but also, it's the quests. Here's the thing about quests. They're so fun, and there's so many of them to do, and I really like doing them because you go to interesting places. For my main character, I joined the Mages Guild, and I also joined House Halalu, which both were so fun. Doing guild quests like this really made the world feel alive, especially because you can't do everything at once. You can only join one of the great houses, and sometimes you can have a quest that may prevent you from joining any other guild, because the Fighters Guild makes you kill all the Thieves Guild members that let you join.
I must say, I find
and you can also be kicked out of some guilds, and you can also be kicked out of side quests in some cases. Again, I love the Mages Guild quest a lot, even though a lot of the quests in this game, especially in the Mages Guild, are very fetchy. But they were still fun. There's lots of exploring in it. House Hawaii also had a lot of interesting things in it because it's all about sucking all the money you can out of things. And getting money is great, and you can even throw people in jail. Or you could just not do that and just go along with the illegal trade. There's also a really interesting character in House Honolulu named Uncle Crasias, and oh boy, this game has some has some pretty interesting characters in it. I like a lot of the quests in this game, and it's so exciting to go to some area like a Dwemer Ruined or an ancestral tomb. Even though assets are used a lot, there's still a lot of very interesting things in this game. That's what makes this game so fun, is its questing. And there's so many good quests in this game, so many times where I could say, ah yeah, that quest, I'm so ready to do that. Morrowind's quest lines besides the main quest don't get too deep like that. But like I said earlier before, some of them have multiple endings to them, including ones where it's pure failure. For example, there's a quest where you have to escort someone to the nearest town and they'll give you a really nice item called the Boots of Blinding Speed. Or you can just kill them and get it. That's pretty nice.
Please, be careful.
The thing is, you don't really see quests like that anymore. You're always kind of dictated to be the good guy, but you don't have to be in Morrowind, and that's pretty interesting. It leads to a lot of replayability, and you can do a lot of different quests however you want. I mean, do you have to do everything by the book? No, but you can also do everything by the book. There's tons of ways to play it, and while not every quest is like this giant branching tree of billions of decisions, it's still just enough to make you go, hey, that's pretty nice. There is, however, one thing about Morrowind that I absolutely cannot stand, and it's the bugs. Morrowind is so buggy. There'd be so many times where I'm hitting invisible walls, or there'd be so many times where there's a stupid actor in my way and I can't move because they won't move because they're talking to me. It's just a really messy game when it comes to a lot of its bugs, and there's been so many times where I've been stuck in some collisions. Thankfully on the PC, you can counteract a lot of this by using console commands to save yourself some time. But it's still super annoying that you'd have to do that.
A pleasure to meet you.
As you continue to tread through Vardenfall, you'll realize that content is starting to dwindle. Between all the Daedra and other guild quests that you were doing, you can't help but notice, but content's starting to run out. Enter Tribunal and Blood Moon, Morrowind's 2 expansion packs. And they both do that. They expand things. Tribunal has a much better story continuation over Blood Moon, but Blood Moon is better. Let me explain. In Tribunal, there's a continuation of the plot going on after you beat Morrowind. Now, Almalexia realizes that you're the Nerevarine. Or not, whatever. Fuck off. And then she gives you some tasks, and, that's about it. Dude, for real, I don't like this expansion. The problem is, while it has some fun moments, everything's in this stupid fucking city. There's either the city or the sewers. And maybe some crypts. And that's all there is to Mournhold. And it sucks. And it's always those same fucking sewers. It's just boring. It's sewers. We have sewers already. We've been to sewers. We've been to a big city. It's nothing really new. It's just kind of more of the same. But there's also some really good items in it, and there's some really good spells that they re-add to it, and I think for that it has some merit to it, and also the story is really cool, especially with Almalexia in it, because she does some very interesting things near the end. Actually, I retract what I say, Tribunal does get really good near the end, and for that I think it's worth kind of trooping through it, but it's still gonna be quite the fucking pimple to pop. Now, in contrast, Blood Moon is an actual expansion. Check this, it adds new biomes to Morrowind. You've got forest and snow-covered mountains, something Morrowind doesn't have. Unlike big cities and fucking swords! You also have a questline that has some branchingness to it, something Tribunal doesn't really have. You also have some interesting quests that involve traveling all around the new island, something Tribunal doesn't have. Okay, yeah, this is just a huge step up, and I just love the skull and the werewolf quests. Oh yeah, you can become a werewolf in this expansion, and it's awesome. But don't worry if you don't want to do the werewolf quest, because then you get a ring that turns you into a werewolf. There's so much cool content in this expansion. There's so many fun quest areas, like an ice castle, caves that are hidden under lakes, and curing yourself of your werewolf disease. God, this is a huge step up. And there's also the East Empire trading quests that are ridiculously hard, but they're so funny. There's one quest where you have to deliver a message on time within 5 hours or you're fucking fired. And you've got to run so fast, and they set traps to burden you and everything. Oh my God. It's just so memorable and so fun, and I like just everything here. I really like this expansion a lot. It's purely additive. There's something new, there's things to do. It's a nice expansion, and well, I still think you should tread through Tribunal for it, but it's up to you what you'd like to do. Now, on the topic of biomes, this game's graphics are aged? I can't really find a proper term to describe it, but nothing is actually bad looking. But it still has this old aesthetic to it because of limited polygon usage and stuff like that. I'd say that the art style and design is still pretty timeless. Morrowind looks really alien, and that's something that's so cool. There's these giant mushrooms just sitting there, and these people living in dead animal carcasses in some cities. It's just a unique looking area, and because of that, everything just pops. Everything looks cool, even though it's old and obviously times have changed and stuff, but nothing looks like disgusting. It just has this really pretty old aesthetic where the game still looks good, but it has low polygons and shit like that. And I still think that nothing's really out of touch. However, only thing, just make like misanimations. Just come on, you know? It's not that hard. This fucking bothers me. Now, sound-wise, though, this game has an excellent soundtrack in it, and it has a lot of nice tracks that have some memorability to them. Not perfect, mind you, but still very nice to listen to. I can definitely say that I enjoy the music. It's very charming and easy to listen to. Sound effects and voice acting are pretty interesting. I like a lot of them because they just sound so fucking stock and like, oh, well, yeah, I haven't heard that sound effect before. But at least the creatures sound unique, even if at points it's a bit odd. Voice acting is alright. You do hear a lot of the same voice actors in it, but the majority of Morrowind is presented through text, so you don't hear a lot of stuff like that. However, in the expansions, they do add new voice actors and actresses and stuff like that. Alright, so what about changes to Morrowind? Well, this game is really broken, and I do like the brokenness, but you really can't have that. Alright, so my first thought is instead of having your maximum attributes go up to 100, they should go up to 500. Why? Well, it puts you up to the point where you can experience what Morrowind is like to be more broken, but a bit more fair, and it also makes it so that when you level up, you'll get more of a boost gain, and so leveling up would become just a little bit more of a big deal. I would also balance the magic as best as I can without really hurting the experience for this game. The first thing is that I would make it so that restoration spells with fortifying attributes cost more. Why should you be able to do that merchant thing like right at the beginning of the game? That's not gonna be fair. Like, come on, that's way too much. Like, giving it a little boost I could get, like 10 points, but 100 instantly for a second? No. That has to have some limitations. And then of course there's other things like alchemy. How the fuck can you balance that? Well, there's only one thing I can think of, and that's to make it so you have a complete maximum of a certain hex value, 65,535. You cannot get any higher than that. I think that would work, but of course some people would yell at me because I can't set it to 10 billion, but at least it would balance out the game just a little bit. So magic would still have this edge to it, but it still wouldn't be too much. But hey, having the stats be like that would definitely make this game play a little bit faster and a little bit more entertainingly. So I would love to see something like that make it into the game. And for real, like I said, these bugs are just terrible, and most of them come from Morrowind's original engine, Gamebryo. What a piece of shit. Like, all I would really want is just a little bit more attention to detail on that. That would be really nice. But thankfully, again, there are ways to solve it. It's just annoying to have to do so. So that's my experience with Morrowind. I really like this game a lot, and it has some balancing issues that prevent it from being my favorite RPG ever, but it's still a very fun game, and I'd recommend it to anyone that just wants to go around and do a new open world and fuck around with some stuff. Now you may have wondered in some instances why this game looks a lot nicer. Well, that's because I'm using an open source project called OpenMW to play this. Though there are still a few glitches to fix, it's still basically ready to go, and if you own the game, I'd recommend playing it that way. I've played this game with many different character setups and many different quests that I've done, and here's how I say you experience Morrowind. You play around, figure out what you like, then you make a main character. Then when you play as the main character, do as many quests as you can, and just have a ball going through this game. Especially if you get like 50 reputation points before you do a certain part of the main quest, then you get to skip a bunch of them. That's awesome. So again, I would highly recommend you tread through the land of Morrowind on the island of Vardenfall, and you get to experience what this game is. It's a nice little gem that cemented itself in history, and when you play it, you'll get to find out why. Hey, what's going on here? Just here to collect my,
May I help you?
oh my god!